sacrifice.
Rattlesnake venom hits from Medea's lips. Dragon Queen, cup of fire. Black arrows darken the sky. The order of the rose with the bows and arrows. Horses ride in full stride. The bolts hit the mark every time. Psychotropic logos. You know who's in the right. Ursus with the giggling smile. Produce the flowers with the pow. I give you my blood. Do you have the blood of the dying god? Sell fire. Put the stars in your eyes. Rub it in. The man who's laughing. I am being. Drink hallelujah from Aphrodite's lips. Ethos. Purple juice coat. Gorgeous. Make your face melt. Tarot cards dealt. Ancient songs of cosmic spells. Wave the magic wand from overhead. Simon says, Hail Satan.
Welcome back to Lady Babylon. This is more Bacchic orgy. I love this. Oh God, you know we've been busy this week, satanic congregation. You know that I have the stuff for you tonight. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to say a couple of things first. First of all, I want to give a welcome to all of the new persons who have come to Lady Babylon. I appreciate it, and I respect the fact that you are giving me some of your time. So I will be direct and not waste it. Thank you for coming tonight. I want to say give a shout out to those who bring us the sacrifice tonight, because that's what the theme is here. I so love this. I just want to tell you, okay, let's stop pretending. Okay, as the time machine rolls, let's stop pretending and let's just say, hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. And for those of you who are new and who want to know, what is this thing? Tonight, we're bringing it to you in the form of the Christ. I am going to show you for the first time. It's sacrifice. Oh, God. It is. It's what you satanic congregation. You love it. Okay, I'll stop. Look, I'm going to be direct and just tell you, it's the sacrifice. You love it. I know. It's the soul sucking. It's why you come, is to suck the soul. I know it is. And I know that taste. There's nothing more invigorating than that. And tonight we have company. Tonight we're going to welcome a boy named Dan. And Dan is going to give us some of his take on life and whatnot, and we're gonna see if what he's saying is accurate, or I want to bring, come on Dan, come on in tonight. Let's not get hostile. If you're gonna understand Christ, Dan, right, and I'm gonna bring it in for all the evangelicals out there. I'm going to show you the Christ tonight. Tonight, I'm going to show you the Christ. And it's not going to be what you thought it was. And your world is going to be different. And it's going to be painful. If you're sitting there and you can feel it, you can start to feel that pressure wave, buckle up, because it's coming. It's coming. Fantastic. Oh, let's bring it. Hey, Jesus, what's he doing with that? Oh, God. I've got a couple of clips. I'm going to start with Gnostic Informant will join us later. And we will proceed with some discussion. But what I've got for you tonight, for all the satanic congregation. Okay, come on, everybody off Everybody off, get off, get off, get off the time machine. And let's go back to a time when you could banquet on a soul. Oh, God, bring it to us. Go ahead and open it up, Shuey. Let's get the first. Boom. First clip. First clip. Nope. There we go. Hit it. Start charts, right? What is the Christ?
What is the Antichrist?
What is the Christ if you have to know the Antichrist? You have to know the Christ.
Right.
All right, let's see it.
It's a Greek word.
For
applying a drug to your eyes so that they may be open.
That's what the Christ means in Greek.
Yes.
The incredulity on the face of this podcast host is warranted because that is pure and utter nonsense.
All right. Wasn't that fantastic? Did you like the degrees on the wall? That's Dan. And everybody give a hand. Give a hand to Dan because he's stepping up. He's stepping up and he's going to defend. He's going to show you tonight in the arena. He's going to show you exactly what his skills have enabled him to do. So a round for the warrior, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Give me the next one. It's from the verb chrio, to be stung by the gadfly.
So as with many words in many languages, the verbal root chrio in ancient Greek can mean more than one thing. Overwhelmingly, it refers to rubbing with some kind of sticky fluid of some kind, either after bathing or for some kind of ritual purpose or something like that. So to anoint, be anointed, anointing, something like that is going to take up the majority of the real estate for the occurrences of this verbal root. However, it can refer to the sting of a gadfly, but that is overwhelmingly in the minority of occurrences of this verb, and it's limited to classical and later Greek lyrical poetry.
Oh, smoke. Oh, did you taste that? Can we relish this for a minute? Look, before we proceed, come on, man. Let me take the mask off. Here we are. I'll put the axe down. Here we go. First of all, you have to admire the distinguished confident, self-confident. Boy, this is a self-confident person. I'd be willing to say that is a form of compensation. You see, I've played this game before and I've given conferences, and when I gave them in England, they said, the London Times said, this research is the last wild frontier of classics. So I've been there and I know, and it's a way of compensating. And this is typical for Bible scholars. Dan is a Bible scholar. All those plaques on his back wall that prop up his bravado, all of those plaques are degrees in Bible studies. Classical philologists laugh. They laugh at the level of performance that Bible studies are able to generate, because people, I'm going to tell you this now. I'm going to give it, and I promise tonight, I'm going to do what Dan. I'm going to do what Dan needs to be done. He needs to be shown the technique, and what we're talking about is philology here. Bible scholars study theology. They usually get a couple of semesters of Greek, and then they get like a semester of an intermediate reading where let's look at John, right? And then maybe a letter of Paul in there, and then all of a sudden they're shipped off to the theology department and given their hoo-ha. Now, how do I know all of this? Because I used to teach at seminary, and when I taught there, I increased enrollment from 5 different dioceses. Yes. And how was I able to do that? Because I was a classical philologist, and I know what training is. Classical philologist, when Dan was sitting in theology, Ammon was sitting in Greek, reading Greek. And that's really the issue tonight, right? Notice that this is a Greek term I'm bringing you, right? Christos. What is that? Christos. What is it? What is it? And Dan says preposterous. So let's see. Dan, please. This is such a great form. And people, we love Dan. Let's give him let's give him another couple of chances at the wisdom, and let's see what we can pull out of it. Go ahead, Chewy, give him the next one.
None of which has anything whatsoever to do with early Jewish or early Christian literature, not the Septuagint, not the New Testament, not the early Greek literature. The notion that you can just assert that sense for any given occurrence just because it happens to be in the lexicon is Strong's Concordance, NASA means to deceive levels of amateurishness.
Amateur. You see what that is? That's an amateur. Okay. So remember, what's the context here? I have told Danny Jones, I had the greatest day of my life with Danny Jones. And Danny Jones said, well, God, how many times have I told him Christ? We're back. Are we back, Chewy? Fantastic. Woo! That was something. I had a really workup going. You and I had something going, and you didn't realize it. And I realized you were gone. Right. Oh, I've done that before. Here we go. Are you ready? Here we go. So what I'm doing is, look, people, I'm going to tell you straight up. I told Danny Jones, and as many people as have seen this now, I told him that Christ is a drug term. Yeah, it's a pharmaceutical term. Right. And what we're going to do is we're going to watch Dan, we're going to watch him now step in and say, there's a difference between this person and this person. This person's a Christian, so the word they're using, it doesn't apply to their neighbor or their contemporary sources, right? It's very amateurish, if you will. Yeah, good word, Dan. You nailed it. Hit the last one.
Neither the word istros, gadfly, nor istromania occur at all in the New Testament or in early Christian literature. This has absolutely no relationship whatsoever to the title Christos or to the verbal root chrio. This person is just making this all up.
All right. So here we go. Are you ready? Okay. So look, by the way, Dan, I can hear modern Greek in what you're saying, which is seminaries do this because they do not teach Greek well. But I was telling everybody, Dan, that in school, that's what we do all the time. You got to read all the text, Dan. You can't say that you're a translator of Greek if you only spend the time that you spend on a little bit of New Testament, a little bit of Septuagint, and all of a sudden, all of the experts around you in your environment, Dan, because Dan, when you're reading this Greek, there are all of these great works that are being written in Greek that shine tremendous light, Dan. They shine tremendous light on all of the other documents that are in their environment, because this is what classical philologists do, Dan. We don't need theology, right? It's a science. A reason is the number one thing, Dan. So watch this. This is what I'm saying to you people. We're done with clips, right, Chewy? This is what I'm saying. You don't know the difference between Dan and me. You don't know the difference. He says it's this way. I'm saying it's this way. Who can tell? Who can tell? Well, we know your reason. We know your. Oh, did somebody want me to spank? Oh, spank. Now I'm a slave. I am a slave to you, Satanists. Oh, I love this. Come here. Come here. Come here. You know, here. Let's just pull down, Dan. Just pull him down, just a little bit, just a little bit, Dan. Oh, it's good. See how flinchiness. Let's go. Oh God, you got the Bacchic thing going on right from the beginning. Okay, so before we put that up, now here, I'm just going to drop the bomb at the beginning of this whole thing, and you can just listen to this, tune out, and walk away, and still receive the same level of satisfaction, right? This is finishing during dessert. You ever finish during dessert? Oh God, this is it. Here we go. Here we go. Are you ready? Oh. What is the problem, Dan? The problem is you're not looking at the sources, right? You're not looking at ancient medical sources. You're not looking at any of the contemporary lit. I know you're not, because I can tell. I can track you from the way that you handle Greek. I can track you. Ready? Are you ready, Dan? Okay, pull it up. Give Dan it. Here, we're giving Dan the pharmacon. Are we going to give Dan the pharmacon? Here you go. Here it comes. It's a drug, Dan. Look at the top. It's a drug. Whether healing or noxious. Oh, who do they give us? Now, what are you guys looking at here, by the way? This lexicon, I saw you use the lexicon, Dan. It was like watching a person pick up a hammer for the first time or something. Yeah, the authoritative. This is not the authoritative text. This is a tool that the Victorians developed, those great classical philologists from 1850, right? This is them. This is Alice in Wonderland, baby. So you got to respect it. And how do you use this tool? You got to walk through the sources. If you're walking the word through the sources, you can see how it is used over time, and you can trace its semantic drift. You can see what happens to it. Oh, it's a history. It's a history, and it's so vibrant. Watch the drugs here, people. Are you ready? Here comes the bomb. Look at paragraph number 2. Healing remedy or medicine, right? In Homer. Give me the next slide. Is this that blowing up? Watch this, people. Boom. Oh, are you ready? Mostly applied outwardly. And then he gives a whole bunch. Look at this gorgeous Greek here. Oh, my God. Epitheseia pharmachaken. Oh, God. Look. Oh, it just, I don't know. There's a charm. There's a charm. Somebody's out there right now making video about something. I don't know, something I said. I don't know. It's probably not relevant, but they're making it, and it just makes me wonder, how do you justify if the language that you write in, the ancient Hebrew, it's got 8,000 unique words. 8,000. How do you compete against Greek that's got somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million to 1.5 million, they've estimated. You can't count that kind of thing. You can't count that thing. Your vocabulary, that's reaching for the stars, baby. That's reaching for the stars. That's why. Do you see how amazingly superior ancient Greek is to the Anglo-Saxon garbage that we have to deal with, that our brain is stuck in? Do you see it? I can't get 1.5 million words. I can't even comprehend. How do you get that much? What kind of concepts explode in your brain? Oh, I love it. Let's relish this. He's still here. Dan, get over here, Dan. Bring that second one up again. Okay, Dan, are you ready? Dan, pay attention. Look, Dan. Look what kind of drugs we're talking about in this one. Oh, look to the end of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down. You're going to see, Dan, pharmakon Christon. Oh, my God. Christon, pharmakon. What is it? What is a drug Christ? What is a drug Christ? We've got that passage. We'll show it to you before we do. That's Euripides. Oh, right. And Dan says, now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. If Euripides used it, it cannot be used by a Christian the same way because there is a wall of separation. Only in your false reality, Dan, does something like that exist. Think about this, Dan, for a minute. Think about it. Think about it. Classicists sit around and they study all the texts and they study how the texts influence each other. Do you know, of all the thousands of authors that we have, Dan, of all the thousands of texts that we've got, Dan, do you know how many of those are walled off and considered, oh, maybe out of time and space? Are they in a different dimension? You're in a fairy tale world, Dan. Look, Dan, look at Jesus Christ, Dan. Look at him on that next line down, en Christon. Look at the word following, epikriston. Do you know what the difference is, Dan? You would if you read the medical text, but Dan doesn't read medical text. Dan says he knows Greek, but he does not know Greek. And you're sitting there in the audience and you don't know. Dan can put on a face and can sit there and project to you confidence. And a guy like me can hear him. And now he's full of it, right? Now he's full of it, right? Preposterous. Preposterous. How many academic conferences did I go to where they used preposterous? Right? That's the disease of theology. That's the academic disease of theology. It really just takes up all the space in the student's brain and they can't grow with the Greek. Oh God, I love it. Is this getting hot? Is this getting hot? I'm starting to get like, oh, Dan, just hang in there with me, Dan. I love it. You love it. You know what I mean? You learn to love it. Let's go to the next, to that very same source. I just want to make sure that we gleaned everything. Oh yeah. Oh, look, he's got at the bottom. For those who are curious, at the bottom, he's got the different types of drugs. In Greek, you got kataplaston, you got poton, you got epipaston. Those are things you sprinkle on, right? And you got epichriston as opposed to the enchriston. These epichriston, you're going into the surface, like with your thumb in somebody's eye, right? Enchriston is an incrustation, actually going beneath the surface. It's a more aggressive form of the application of the drug. We can do a lot with whips and stuff like that. But this is Bacchic, baby. This is Jesus in his earliest form, right? Go hit the next one, Chewy. Look at this, people. Now, remember what Dan said, right? This is just absolutely crazy. There is no connection between Christ and drugs. That's because Dan has never read the text. Dan, I'm so sorry. Those degrees, right? It's a Bible Institute. Okay. Look at this. Look at the Epicristos. I love this. Smeared on, right? Painted, right? Give me the next one. There's a companion flower there. I love that. They don't need to see that one. And here's the Anchristos. I just want you to see it, people. Look, here is the word Christ. Danny Jones, please look at this word. You can see it in the Greek, and it says in Christ station. And it's something that you rub into somebody. And where do you rub it? Look at the Greek in the blue. It's in the blue. Eistus ophthalmus. Oh, isn't it? Greek is so sexy. Ancient Greek. Modern Greek is not ancient Greek. Ancient Greek is it's got this kind of boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean? You're at that, what do they call those raves or whatever? Yeah. What is the eistus ophthalmus? Into the eyes. Into the eyes. Dan, I know you didn't read any of these texts, Dan. You can take it down. I know you didn't read any of these texts, Dan, that I'm, showing you references to. I know you haven't, Dan. And I know you haven't read authors that are contemporary with the New Testament. People like Dioscorides, Dan. Do you know that Dioscorides talks about Christ, Dan? Did you know what he does? Of course, he's talking about Christing, because it is a pharmaceutical operation. The first Christ, Dan, was a woman, and she is the genius who figured out the mystery. Oh, God. Dan, does that hurt you? Does that hurt you, Dan? Ooh, oh, let's see it. They don't trust me. They don't trust me. I want to say something. A couple of things. A couple more things. As we kind of establish the Christ, right? What is the Christ? You have to also realize, please realize, everybody out there, and I'm giving you this because a lot of people here have given their time for this. So I want to honor you. Are you ready? That first Christ is a woman, and she Christ herself in order to enter into a state of mania, and then proceeds to intoxicate people around her, to force them to enter that state. It's active possession. Active possession. Fantastic. Okay, let me get to the next one. I want to give them the right hook here. Here comes the right hook. Dan, please hang in there, Dan. I know it looks bad, and I know I just showed you a reference to a text that talks directly about putting those in the eyes. But, you know, Dan, there's a guy, Dioscorides, in the 1st century. He's got it all there, Dan. You can find that sometimes if you want. You can go to Lady Babylon. You can look back, because I've given references to Dioscorides and that kind of thing. I know you don't read them. I know you don't read Paul of Aegina. I know you don't read Galen. You may say Galen, but you don't read Galen. I know that for a fact. Sorry, but it's second sophistic, brother, and I can tell. What is this here? This is the enchanted potion or filter, right? This is the magic side of the pharmacon, and the wall that Dan wants to erect. And this is what all Bible scholars do, right? The Bible is special. It is the inherent word of God, and it is special. The Torah, that is special, right? The New Testament, that is special. And these things cannot be dealt with in the manner that all of the other bits of the past can be dealt with. It's a special attitude. I'm going to erect. They may have done that, but we certainly didn't. Right? That's the same attitude, Dan, that they gave me at my dissertation. The head of the department said the Romans just wouldn't do such a thing. Just wouldn't do such a thing. Dan, there's thousands of pages of the Romans doing just such things. And so I'm afraid to have to tell you this, but Jesus was a drug user, and he is Christing his own eyes. Oh, God, how's he getting that stuff there? Remember, Dan, in the garden when the naked kid was with Jesus, when he was arrested at 4 a.m.? Remember, he had the purple bandage on his, the medicated bandage, let me say it, put it that way, on his Yahoo, right? And Jesus is being administered the rites, having the purple through the impregnated linen under the pressure of the ejaculation of that naked kid, right? That is the Jesus Christ who has the drugs on board, who is able to enter into the mystery. You mean this is all chemical mystery? Of course it is. Of course it is. Look at the words, okay? You're saying, no, you're still a nut. And let me tell you something, the word gospel. How about if we just look at gospel? The gospel, you know what the gospel is? It's a word the doctors use. Wait, what? The gospel is a medical term? Yeah. And guess what? It's way older than the Christian usage. The thing that you call the Christian usage, way older. And it's been used over time. What does it mean? It means the power of bringing health that the concoction has. So you have compound drugs, and they're gospel. They're evangelion or they're epangelion. They use both. That's the efficacy of the drug that you're taking. That's the gospel. Oh, really? What is salvation? What is salvation? Salvation is the state you enter once you have the drugs. Huh. Okay, fantastic. And you mean there are people who are using the terms just like that when Jesus Christ is walking around? When Jesus Christ, Dan, is walking around and he's, he's like with that kid, he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, that kid's naked, and he's got that bandage around his penis. And he says, oh my God, the drippy stuff is disgusting. Ryan, what is he's got that drippy stuff on his face? It's not it's not the cleanest operation, you know what I mean? Orgiastic or cult rites that are involved with the mystery are always messy, right? There's always purifications and whatnot that have to be done. The baptisms, right? Those are about dyes. Those are about dyes. Did anybody know that? Did anybody know that Mary was 12 years old? She was auctioned off, and that her vagina was full of the burning purple. Yeah, that made it into the apocryphal stuff. Yeah, we got a midwife there and everything. Everybody check it out. I'm not kidding. It's all there. Right. So anyway, let's get Dan back up on his feet. Come on, Dan. Stand with me, Dan. Let's look at a couple more sources, brother. Let's look at this. I just wanted you to see that the drug is a dye or a paint, these things that they're putting, the pigments that they're putting in the drugs, those are the very same pigments that they're using to dye. So, it's not like they differentiate. Baptism is that medical process. Oh, God, it's gorgeous, isn't it? Go down to the next one. We only have a couple here, people, tonight. Watch this, Dan. Watch this. You've got a pharmacon, a drug of salvation, soterias. Now, you didn't know this existed, Dan, right? He didn't even know what a Christ was. This morning when he woke up, he didn't know what a Christ was. Evangelicals across this planet, they didn't know what a Christ was. Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, all of them, they didn't know what a Christ was. Now they know. The Christ is a drug, and that drug is the way of salvation. It's the way of salvation. It's the pharmakon soterias. But he didn't know that. Dan didn't know that. Give Dan that next text. I want Dan here. This is vitamins. Dan, here, just be still. This is gonna hurt a little bit. A little pressure here, Dan. Just bear with me. Try to relax. Are you ready? This is a Christ reference. Dan, look, here's a Christ reference. Here he is. Christon. There he is. Hi, Jesus. No, this is from Euripides. And who's Euripides? He's a tragic playwright. And what is he doing? When I say tragic playwright, I don't mean like somebody who went to college to be able to do this kind of stuff or anything like that. No, I'm not talking about that. This guy is the son of a root collector who is involved in supplying all the drugs to the cults. Okay? And he's writing this in a cave, and he has in the mouth a Phaedra. It's okay. Don't worry about who Phaedra is for now. He says, Potera de Christon e potonto pharmakon. He says, what kind of drug is it that you got? Do you have a Christ or do you have one of those potables? They're distinguishing between drugs based upon how they're used. Those potables, everybody drinks them, right? The Christ, everybody knows what you do with a Christ. No problem. Keep going. Now, notice that you have not seen anointing once, right? Because that's the trash heap, right? Don't go there. Wait, just stay with the Greek, people. Stay with the Greek. Here's Mark 16:18. What does Jesus say in Mark 16:18? He says, you're going to raise up serpents. And when you drink the thanasimon, it's not going to hurt you. When you drink the thanasimon, what are Jesus's people doing? They're drinking drugs. Drinking drugs, Dan. You didn't realize that Jesus was a drug fiend, Dan. He's walking around with a title that says, I'm a drug fiend. Oh my God. Maybe, you've got to ask Christians, just ask them straight up, do you think Jesus was the only Christ that ever existed? Do you think he was the first? Do you think he just popped on the scene in fairy tale? Ha ha! And there he is. Boom. Boom. I'm a Christ. You're what? Nobody knows what that means because it's the first friggin' time any of us have ever heard it. Where's that little kid? Where's John? Where's John? Where'd he go? People keep saying this. I want to correct this. Oh, he's so bad. What is that? Are we dead? Are we dead? Oh God! Oh God! I stepped on the wires. Oh, I'm sorry, Chewy. Oh, that was terrible. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. We're getting through, though. We're getting through, and this week was all about getting through. And I'm really glad that I was able to do it. And I want you people to see. I want you people to see. So look, I told you the name Christ. It's about drugs. Now I just pulled out all the drug related material, showed you the Christing and different kinds of Christing. Now you know why there's an Antichrist, right? Which Isidore says is Amen, which is cool. But there's a way. There's a way to see the Antichrist now, right? What is the Antichrist? It's an antidote to the Christ. That's all. It's an antidote to the Christ. It's why Jesus, the Christ, needed that naked boy. You could not have had the Garden of Gethsemane if you did not have a naked boy. That naked boy was the source of the antidote, which he is ejaculating into Jesus's mouth through a linen wrap that is impregnated with the burning purple. And that's why when Luke says, well, I don't know, he's got this stuff, it looks like he's got sweat like blood, it's that dark color. It's because he's involved in the rite, but it's drippy and slimy. It's not obviously it's something that he arrived at from struggles and et cetera, et cetera. I don't need to let you know the finer details of what Jesus was doing to that naked boy that he was arrested with. There's no reason for me to talk about that. Dan doesn't want to hear that kind of stuff. When Dan comes up and he says, look, I've got 5 books, and these 5 books all say the Septuagint was originally written in Hebrew for this reason and that reason, right? This is the same thing that Bible scholars have done for the last, I don't know, maybe 1,500 years. Maybe 1,500, very consistent people. They always are. Okay, here's the problem. And this is what the interview that Danny Jones had. This is what, and by the way, I had somebody comment to me just today. This was the best interview that I've ever given because it set things out. Danny was able to keep me on some kind of linear thing, and Danny was like, be direct, bro, right? That I really appreciate that. And he read The Chemical Muse right before then, right? Does his work, bro, right? I'm exceptionally honored to have been able to be involved, and I thank you, Danny. I knew that you were going to get a lot of heat. A lot of people are praying for Danny. Do we have a picture of Danny Jones? Do we have a picture? Oh, look at this. I kind of get excited when I see Danny. Blow that up. I have like a good day. I don't know what it is. Some people have. Yeah, just sign up. I was trying to hide behind him. Just some people have this. I don't know. He's got this thing. I look at him. I'm like, yeah, this is of the earth. You know what I mean? This is strong. This is going to last. I like it. Get him down. Get him down, Danny. So look, to be given the opportunity to expose people like this is perfect. This is the sacrifice that we love. These biblical scholars will come in with this very same bravado. They always do until they find out what area you study. And then they're like, ooh, right? Because everybody, I'll tell you a secret, everybody who studies, who has ever been exposed to ancient Greek, and this includes modern Greeks, and I studied with modern Greeks, and I can tell you for a fact, it is humbling. Ancient Greek is humbling. 1.5 million. That's a ton of unique words. Think of the brain power it takes to be able to produce that. Just following their tracks is going to make all of us a lot smarter. And it seems to do that consistently through history as it bubbles up through the surface. The more people open up that classical Greek, all of a sudden, next thing you know, there's Renaissance and there's whatnot. Now, we can either have that Renaissance or we can very happily sit back and look at characters like Dan, and we can say, what are they doing? I'm going to follow. I'm going to believe. I'm going to commit to you my faith, and I'm going to believe that the Romans just wouldn't do such a thing as drugs. And I'm going to believe in the fairy tale of Jesus Christ, who is not the guy who was arrested in a public park at 4 a.m. with a naked boy. I'm going to believe in a reality that is not the real. And you and I know we can't do that. We can't do that. That's why you're here, is because you want the reality. You value history. You worship history, and you don't want the lie. Please understand, I am not the only one in this arena. We're about to bring in Gnostic informant who was just renamed Gnostic warrior by someone. But we'll bring him in. Okay. Make sure that I want to just end off with a couple of quotes here, people. And I always do this, and people know it. Oh yeah, here's your Theosabeseia. What is Jesus giving to his people? He's giving these death-inducing drugs. People, if you want to tell grandma what Jesus Christ was, tell her he was a guy who was arrested in a public park with a naked kid and was handing out at some time death inducers. Oh God. You haven't been there until you've been here. I guarantee you. I know there's a few people out here like, yeah, I hear him. Right? Give me the next one. Here we go. The curative property claimed by, we're going back to the gospel. That's okay. We're going back to the gospel. You'll notice that there's an attachment. There's a connection between the gospel and drugs, right? Because what is it, people? That salvation is health. And in antiquity, at different times, it changes and the drugs change. Different regions change. Depends on what markets you can get. But there's a long tradition in antiquity of the drugs being the source of health, right? It's one of the major, Galen says it's kind of the foundational branch of medicine is that drug work. Love it. Oh God, that stuff's gorgeous. We're almost done. Hang in there, Gnostic. We're almost there. Who are the soterists? Sorry, what's that? Okay, who are the soteriasti? They're the worshippers of Artemis, Sotera. Did you know there was a savior before Jesus? Yeah, there is. The first savior was the first Christ, and they called her Diana. They called her Diana Medwa. Oh my God. You mean our root for medicine comes from her name? Yeah, I'm talking history. History's genius, the Medea. Yeah, she's the one who started all this. So fantastic. But she didn't unlike Jesus, she didn't get arrested while engaging the rites in a public park with a naked kid. Yeah, love it. Let's go to the next one. Finally, I wanted to put up a couple of quotes here for people. Look, and for people who are emailing and telling me all of these most excellent accounts of your awakening, of your inspiration, of your drive, and those who want the Greek too, they want to eat that real stuff straight on up. Okay, right? We've got to stay together and we've got to move forward. Watch this, people. Tales from the Spectrum. By the way, I'm not monetizing. Devil wanted me to say that. Damn, I forgot about that in the beginning. Devil said, hey, you got to tell them. We respect the people who are saying, we respect you for not taking payola, right? So you'll notice that our members have gone up, our subscribers have gone up, right? So we got to let people know that the only way this magic works is if there's not a friggin' dime involved. Yeah, you guys, oh God, can you smell it? I think it's someone's backside. Hit the next one. Hit the next one. Who is this? Oh God, this guy gives me the creeps too. Okay, give me the quote. I believe this is from Tales from the Spectrum. Thank you. Thank you, Tales from the Spectrum. I believe I've identified the Antichrist. Fantastic. Let me know. He's here now. Fantastic. He said verbatim what the Bible says he would. I think he's talking about the interview. I think this is about the interview. Fantastic. Was he there too? I don't know. The camera catch that? It's it's only what you can see in reflection, right? Give me the next one. More Ronin scholars, please. Oh, this one made me so happy. Oh God, I love the spirit in this one. Yeah. See, here's the problem. Institutions pump out people. And doesn't matter if their training is good or bad as long as they're getting paid, right? That's what institutions do. But there are artists and there's discipline in that artistic community. And it's those people who end up bringing you the frontier. It's those people upholding the orthodoxy. It's just not on our list of things to do. Love it. So you've seen Dan tonight. You've seen the incrustations and epichristations and Christations and antichristations. And you've seen that they are drugs, Dan. They're drugs. I'm sorry. I know it's just because you haven't read these sources. I get it. I totally get it. Dan, thank you for coming tonight. Let us switch now. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna step outside because that was it. I'm gonna step outside for a minute and I'm going to summon some wind. Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna reach out there and just suck in some fresh air. I love it. And I'm gonna give Neil time, uninterrupted, to bring us his delightful presentation. Hit it, Chewy. Bring in Neil. How you doing? Gnostic warrior?
What up?
Thanks for coming back again. On
crazy mystic, amateur mystic.
Thanks for coming back. I'm going to be quiet now. And because you have been pumping me with stuff that is just fantastic. You're getting great sources. And I asked you to please find some naked boys in some magic text. And you're going to do that too. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, when you come back, we'll go to that stuff.
Excellent.
While you're gone, I want to give my thoughts on the whole Dan McClellan situation, Kip Davis, all that stuff.
Good.
But I feel like it's fair that we do it separately because we don't. What you say isn't necessarily isn't my own opinion, and what I say isn't necessarily your opinion. We have our own thoughts.
Yeah. No, I'm yielding to you the platform. Now you can. It's your space, and people should have that. Oh yeah, it feels like a salon. And now number 2 is up. Okay, I'm going to shut up and bounce out. Go ahead, Chewy.
All right. So first of all, to get the booze out of the way, because I have some thoughts that I know that I'll get some booze for, and some thoughts that I know I'll get some cheers and laughs from. So look at the booze out of the way. Who can get that out of the way? The booze that you guys should all throw your tomatoes at me for this one. But I thought Kip Davis did a diligent and good job today at sticking to the text and looking at the evidence and coming up with some good arguments. I was especially happy to see him acknowledge that scholarship is going into a direction. He mentioned Jonathan Adler. He mentioned Gad Barnea. He mentioned Russell Gmerkin, as in bringing out new peer-reviewed material and new ideas about how late are these texts, or how early are these texts, the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, Genesis. And he is acknowledging that it looks more and more likely that these are Hellenistic, in the form, at least in the form that we have it today. Hellenistic with roots that probably go back for however far who knows. I mean, anything's possible in that sense. I mean, for example, we talked about this on this channel before. We have, for example, before I even get into, I just want to finish off the Kip thing before I get to Dan. And we have in our possession what is called Nestor's Cup. So let me share my screen real quick, if you don't mind. It is this page, Wikipedia page. Now this is Nestor's Cup, right? This is the Cup of Nestor. What is that? All right, this is a 8th century BC Greek alphabet cup, and what is on it is the name of a character from Homer's Iliad. All right, so you can't find anything like this. There's no cup with Moses' name on it or Abraham's name on it. You get stuff about the kings and the princes and all that stuff that nobody denies is legitimate historical. But as far as anything from like Genesis or the Exodus or the flood of Noah, there's nothing like this. There is no cup that you could find. Look at this. This is what it says in Greek. I am the cup of Nestor, good for drinking. Whoever drinks from this cup, desire beautifully crowned Aphrodite will seize him. We have this dating. So Homer's Iliad, we date it to when we find evidence of the text, right? Does that make sense? We don't just look. If Homer was saying, I'm a guy living in 14,000 years ago, we wouldn't just say, oh, it's dated to that time. For some reason with the Hebrew Bible, that seems to be where everyone tries to go. They're trying to find out how far back can we go, instead of actually just dating the text to where it goes, letting the evidence fall where it falls. Finally, it seems like the tides are changing, and people are, because I've been asking this question for at least 2 years now. I would say for about 2 years now, I've been asking the question, who is citing Genesis before 300 BC? Can someone just show me anybody mentioning, citing it, quoting from it, anything like that? The prophets don't. The prophets never do, ever. So I don't know why it's taking so long for people to come around that. But Kip Davis came along and he gave his, I thought he did good. So there's, all right, throw your vegetables at me and all that stuff. Get that out the way. But I got some stuff for Dan though. That it's not looking good for Dan. All right. I got a video on the bottom. Let's play it and we'll talk about it.
Hey everybody, something to keep in mind the next time you see people talking about what religion does and what problems it causes and what religion is that religion does not exist outside of our discourse about it. It is a conceptual category that we created. It is a map and it is not the territory. The creation of this category really began with medieval Islam and was taken up within the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the Enlightenment.
Whoa. What you just heard, what just happened there? I don't know if you noticed that, but that was 1,000 years you just skirted past like it was 1 year. This is something that was taken up in the early medieval Islam and then the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. Whoa, what the hell? You have a time machine? You just went from the 7th century all the way to the 13th, 14th century, and then all the way to the 7th, 16th, and what are you doing? Well, how do you just say that's so nonchalant? You know, the thing called religion is something that was just some random thing that, you know, just Islam and medieval and whoa, you just went through 1,000 years right there. You can't just skirt past that like it was like a decade. Like you could say that for like, I don't know. You know, there was this one mystery cult that sprung up in near Ephesus, and it was around for, you know, half a century or something like that. That's what you could say that, but like you can't just skirt past 1,000 years of time, 7th century to the Renaissance, all the way to the Enlightenment. You just passed through 1,000 years. All right, let's continue. I'll get to why this is That's not really the bad part, though. The reason why I'm bringing up this video is because his criticism of Ammon can be directly pointed at him for his arguments for what the term religion means. I'll show you what.
And it was primarily a tool that European Protestant Christians used to help them understand this new world that they were discovering around them. And so in many ways,
I kind of agree with that, but I don't. Let's let it rock for a second. Is it not playing? Did it freeze?
Looks like it froze. Look at him. Hey, Dan. He looks concerned, and so in many ways.
All right, you know what? I might have to play this from a different player because I think it's downloading on your end, and it's fine. I can figure this out. Just bring it down. I'll bring it back up in a second. It'll be no problem. I can fix this, and then I can. We're just gonna play the whole video through and not pause them anymore. And I have, and that's what we'll do. All right.
Let me say a song and dance while you prep that. Are you ready to go?
Me?
Yeah.
everybody, something.
I'm ready to go.
Okay, go for it. Keep going.
All right. So, oh wait, hold on. I have to remove this from the stage first. All right. Go ahead, sing your song and dance. All right, go ahead.
Here we go, people. The whole thing that I wanted to make sure people got was that this is intentional obfuscation, right? Creating a false world where your people don't apply to the people around you. This is a monist virus in the brain of humanity. As soon as a society goes monist, you lose that classical wisdom, and out go the libraries, out go the reason, out goes the discovery.
Oh, I'm getting there. You'll see when I get there. Play this clip. Hold that thought because I'm going to get there. This has to do with the very definition of religion. It's funny that this is the thing that he's talking about and basing a lot of his. He had a whole course on this, and we seem to be on exact opposite ends of this. And I think it has to do with It has to do with worldview in a lot of ways. So what you just said is going to end up being very crucial to all of this. It has to do with. You'll see. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me play this clip and we'll go.
Something to keep in mind the next time you see people talking about what religion does and what problems it causes and what religion is that religion does not exist outside of our discourse about it. It is a conceptual category that we created. It is a map and it is not the territory. The creation of this category really began with medieval Islam and was taken up within the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the Enlightenment. And it was primarily a tool that European Protestant Christians used to help them understand this new world that they were discovering around them. And so in many ways, our concept of religion today can be reduced to an essence of whatever sufficiently resembles Protestant Christianity. And this is the way that Brent Nongbre phrased it in his wonderful book, Before Religion. And so when people talk about religion, usually it's a conceptual proxy for Protestant Christianity. It's an attempt to generalize from Protestant Christianity to all other religions. But we can't really define religion in a way that is analytically useful. This is a debate that's been going on for many years within the scholarship, and we have just not found a definition that reduces everything that is labeled religion to any kind of short list of necessary and sufficient features. And that's because the concept did not develop with reference to necessary and sufficient features. It is not learned and it is not used with reference to necessary and sufficient features. And if you want to look at the scholarship that has been discussing this for many decades now, here are some things you can look up.
Let me. Can you hear me?
Yeah. This is the part that I want to really focus on.
And finally, if you go to my link tree, there's a PDF called Religion, and then in brackets it says draft. This is a draft of a chapter from my doctoral dissertation from several years ago that I ended up cutting from the dissertation. I didn't submit it because it was too bulky and it was unnecessary, but the whole chapter is basically discussing the concept of religion, how it was created, how people attempt to...
Okay, so this is the part that it really got me going about...
Yeah.
All right, so this is
no, wait. Can I just say I wanted to kill myself halfway into that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But
Okay,
there was a reason why
I
had to get to this part, because I checked this article, this dissertation that he wrote, and it seems like he was really okay. I'm just gonna say this off the front, and I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is and explain to you why I think this. I don't think he went into this looking blindly like a scientist would and gather and just let the data decide what the outcome was. He went into this trying to maybe trying to argue whatever his dissertation was, trying to find the data that supports whatever argument he was making. And what he tried to criticize you for is actually what he's doing here. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is the dissertation right here. So this is what he does. This was kind of crazy. He defines the word. It's about the word religion. Remember, he said he cut this from his dissertation, so I didn't actually get into his dissertation, but he has it on his website, and he mentions it in that video. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I really, I would say if anyone's really interested, read it. Why not? See where I'm at, see where he's at. And decide for yourself what's going on here. The part that really got me to want to bring this up today in context to why he's being a hypocrite for what he's saying about you is right around where he decides to do an etymology of the word religion right here. The purpose of this section is to outline the process by which modern concept of religion is developed. And he says, I briefly outline the process of reification as it is understood by scholars today, arranging discussion about the history of the etymological origin of the English word religion. In the Latin religio, several words appear to have been used in Greek and Latin antiquity to refer to concepts variously associated with the modern notion of religion. For example, pietas, fides, lex, secta, cultus, colere, threskia. By the way, I got to do something first. Somebody sent me a screenshot right before I went on with you. Someone sent me this screenshot. And first of all, let me pull this up because we have to put a pause in this for a second. I'm going to come back to this dissertation, but you're going to die when you see this.
I don't want to spoil your surprise, but I see it coming. Yeah, and you're right. Oh God, keep going. Bring it up.
So here is someone sent me this screenshot earlier right before I got on with you. And it's a screenshot from a chat that was, I don't know where. I have no idea where this is from, actually, to be honest. But it's funny because it's so typical, Dan. Are you serious? You think a person with 4 degrees required ancient Greek who spent almost 10 years supervising the modern Greek translation of the Book of Mormon and regularly visited Greece doesn't know Greek? Are you honestly think that? I mean, it doesn't sound like that, but that's my impression of someone who fucking talks like this. Like, that is not an argument. That's a fucking, I don't know, maniac thing to say to somebody. How dare you question my Greek? I spent 10 years supervising the modern Greek translation of the Mormon Bible. Fuck you, dude. You sound like a fucking douchebag.
Okay.
The reason why I had to bring this up.
Yes.
He does this all the time. He just waves his credentials at everything. He'll have a video. He'll be debunking a video.
Yeah.
He'll just say, this is utterly false and preposterous. And here's 10 books that I never read or you're never going to read that agree with me on this. But he'll just assert. He does a lot of assertions. He never really gives arguments. You notice this. He did this with you in the first video.
Yeah.
The one, not the Christ one. What was the first one about again?
Oh God, I don't
The Greek
remember.
translation. The
It
Greek
didn't
translation.
stick. Can I say though, Neil? Let me interrupt. Let me interrupt because I don't want to miss this.
I'm flowing, but go ahead.
Look at the no, you're flowing, and I don't want to interrupt it, but look, he regularly visited Greece. Somehow he thinks his walking around modern Greece is going to allow him to absorb Homer and Pindar. I don't know. What you're smoking, guy.
You're gonna laugh when you see this. You're gonna laugh when you see this because in that dissertation. First of all, I got to say this first. When the first video he did about you, I give it a 0. I told you Kip did great today. I give Kip I don't even give any. Kip got 100 in my eyes. I know you could disagree with that. I'm just saying I liked Kip's video today. Thought the energy was good, and I thought it was great. Dan's first video against you, 0. You want to know why he gets a 0? He didn't give any arguments. All he did was say, nuh-uh, and here's 5 books that none of you are ever going to read, and I'm just going to gaslight the whole public and make them think that I'm right because I have a PhD. Bro, that's not an argument. That's an assertion, and it's nothing. At the end of the day, we're back at square one because all you're making an assertion. And by the way, you gave arguments. You gave multiple words. The Theosabeseia thing, that was a good argument. I thought it was very convincing. Theosabeseia is a technical term in Greek. Yeah. It comes in the Hebrew in 2 different words. I thought that was a good argument. Dan didn't do anything like that. By the way, Kip actually did give some examples. He said the word Pascha, a couple other words. He gives some arguments. Fuck yeah, let's do that. That's what this is supposed to be about. Bring an argument. Dan didn't bring shit. All Dan did is say, no, here's 5 books that no one's going to read. All right. Anyways, let's put that aside for now.
Okay, let me say something. I just want you to know that in that second clip that you showed him where he was babbling on about religion, I swear that is a hypnotic drug that religion departments have developed over time. It's a logos that they use to it lulls me into like, first it grates and then it makes me sleepy. I don't know why. Well, but you have to understand too that there is a lot of bad work. There is a lot. You don't understand it. If you don't understand the lingo, you don't understand that when one scientist has really gone wrong and the others are all trying to correct them, that's the problem with the theology people, is that they have to prop up that theology. Can you just tell me, Neil, really quick? SBC is what? Explain that to me again.
SBC?
Yeah. What is SBC?
SBL, you mean?
Whatever. Dan's associated with it.
Oh,
one
SBL,
of his prestigious
Society of Biblical
one of his prestigious groups.
They suck. They're the whole point of them is just to. I mean, if the facts are brute, they have to. Like their whole thing is like, what can we get away with? How early can we date the text? Let's see how early. Let's try to get to the Iron Age. Let's try to get it there. That's what they're doing. You could just so obvious. They're trying to please all the Christians and they're trying to sell Christianity to liberal audiences. But the Bible really isn't that anti-gay, guys. It's really not. It's really actually really progressive. Right. No, it's not. Fuck that. It fucking sucks. All right. And it's dated to the Hellenistic period, as you're going to find out. But when I drop my video with Gad Barnea, we blow it out the water for 2.5 hours. Anyways, pull up my screen, please. So the reason why I wanted to show you that his little, how dare you question my Greek skills? Because right here, there's a word in Greek. You see that word? Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit so everybody can see it. You see it? Threskeia. What is that? It looks like Threskeia, but I don't know. I'm not really sure. And then I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's a Koine version of some word. Maybe it's a different version of the word Threskeia that I'm thinking of, because that's a word for religion, right? And I asked my friend who knows modern Greek, is this how you spell it in modern Greek? He said no. Check this out. Ready? I'm going to come back to this. And I got to go back to I got to go back to my other folder. Just give me a second. All right, so back to this folder, right? Look, if you put that word into any lexicon, this is Perseus Tufts. Perseus Tufts has all the lexicons rolled into one. That's why we call it Alice, baby. No information found. That's not a fucking word, dude. You spelled it wrong. Oh, how dare you question my Greek? Bro, you spelled threskeia wrong. It's not a word. You don't know fucking Greek. You spelled it wrong, dude. Here's how you really spell it, with an heta. All right? So, what does it mean? It means religious worship. Now, isn't that funny? Isn't that funny that this word means religious worship? That's how it's used in Greek. You see, you got Herodotus twice. What is this? You got the Book of Acts uses it. Ephesians uses it. So Christians are using the shit out of this word. Huh. Why wouldn't we talk about this word? All right, let's just put this aside for now. Let's go back to the article, if you don't mind. All right. I'm getting all fired up over here. So back to the article. This is what he's saying here. He says this. You spelled the word wrong, but he's saying all those words, Eusebia, which is another word we use that can translate to religious or pious or, religious. All right. He says, this is what he says. He just fucking says, for example, all of these words that we use for all of these words that I just named that form the basis of the meaning of the English word religion, just ignore all that shit, because I am just going to focus on this one Latin word, religio, right? So he's only going to focus on this word religio. But not only that, this is what he does. This is why he's a hypocrite for calling you out. He decides to use 3 examples of the word religio used by Plautus. He uses the word Plautus, Julius Caesar, and Cicero, while Lucretius pejoratively described it as a synonym. Okay, so maybe 4, but mostly 3. He's saying, okay, Cicero, religio is a virtue that was contrasted with superstitio. For Caesar, it's an obligation of an oath, right? Okay. Plautus uses this word. He calls me back directly and invites me to dinner. I had scruples, religio, and I could not decline. So like oaths and obligations, right? And then Cicero. Okay. He uses these 3. Why are you cherry picking those 3 when you just criticized Ammon? Ready for this? Here is the Perseus Tufts. So we're using Lewis and Short lexicon. Here's the word religio, and look how many times it's used for reverence for the gods. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Why didn't you talk about any of those usage of the word? Why did you just cherry pick 3 random usages of the word? Now, I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to show, look, the word religio was used in different contexts in the ancient world. We don't use the word religion the same way they do. That's because religion is English and religio is Latin. And the reason why this is a stupid argument is because you wouldn't do the same thing for scientia. The word science comes from the Latin word scientia, which means knowing or being skilled in anything, knowledge, right? Here's a Cicero, right? Cicero, let's go with Cicero. He wants to talk about Cicero. Let's talk about Cicero, right? Cicero uses the word right here. He says, aut scire esterum rerum nihil, I suck at Latin, nihil aut etiamisi maxime siemias, all right? Now, if you check this with this, I'm being honest, I'm not a Latin guy, but I know what this translates to. I can look it up because other people have done it before me. It says, either we know nothing about such things, or even if we know them thoroughly, we cannot be better or happier because of that knowledge. Basically, scientias is the Latin word is the Latin version of the Greek word gnosis. It means knowledge. That's it. we use the word science way different than the Latin uses the word scientias, right? But where's Dan at trying to tell everybody we shouldn't use the word science anymore because it doesn't mean what it used to mean, right? Because that's not a worthy dissertation, because it doesn't do anything, because nobody would care. Everyone would just ignore it. But the fact of the matter is, this is a stupid dissertation anyways, because this is actually a funny thing that happened. It's very comedic. What happened with this is actually very hilarious. So there was actually a time where Dan tried to police the usage of this word on the internet. So let me share my screen one more time. I have another screenshot. This happened a while ago. There was a debate between a Christian and David McDonald's. Pretty good debate. And I was in the chat, and I said, look, for once I agree with the Christian here. I said, religion has the public service of giving people an outlet to grieve loved ones who pass away. This is something that I don't think anyone can disagree with. And then wait a minute. He just used the word religion in a context that I don't agree with. I got to police the internet now. He says religion doesn't exist outside of discourse, so it's not doing anything at all. And then the funny part about this is, wrong way. The funny part about this is 2 seconds later, other people in the chat are using the word religion. Religion isn't a direct correlation to a lower aggression. We don't see higher aggression. And the Ember disagreed with me politely. I don't think religion, let alone any specific religion, should get credit for human grief. That's part of human being. Now, listen, we all know what they mean by that. None of us are thinking in ourselves, well, Cicero would have used the word religion different. So, Ember, you shouldn't have said it that way. You should change whatever you said to worship of the gods or something. No, because that's incoherent. And that's not how language works. We decide how we determine what words mean. And words change over time. Right now, when I say the word religion, people know what I mean by it. They don't think that I'm talking about an obligation for, like Caesar used it. They think I'm talking about worship of certain gods, attending a certain church or a synagogue or a Buddhist temple. People know what religion means because that's how we use it. Now, I have one more thing that I want to present. A couple of things, actually. Beautiful, beautiful text from my boy here. Speaking of the Renaissance, because I think this word is very well defined, in my opinion, and I disagree with what Dan's trying to do with this word. I think his dissertation sucks. I think the way he tries to redefine words by going back to the ancient past and trying to bring the context of what they talked about in the ancient past into today's world is dumb. I don't know what it just doesn't seem useful at all. People, when we say monotheism, we know what that means. We know there is no pure monotheism anywhere. Even Islam isn't really purely monotheistic. There's jinn, there's spirits, there's the devil, Hashatan, all that stuff. We know there's no pure monotheism, but we know when you say monotheism, you know what it means. We know it means that there's one eternal creator who's perfect and infallible, and all the spirits are below. That's what monotheism means. Let's not play, and I'm going to get back to that in a second. My boys Brumi and Flavio from the 14th and 15th century, along with Machiavelli and Petrarch. This is who I've been reading in the last couple days or last couple weeks. Right now I'm into Flavio. Biondo Flavio. I'm reading him right now because I'm working on a video, and I'm actually glad this all happened between Amon and Dan, because I was originally making a video dealing with some of the stuff that I disagree with Dan on, but I'd rather do it here because this video is turning into a really deep anthropology video that I'm working on. It's going to be a big documentary about what is religion. And I found the most beautiful definition of religion from a Renaissance writer who used, by the way, Petrarch, Flavio, and Brumi and Machiavelli, they all use the term Dark Ages to refer to the period between 500 AD and 1000 AD. And the reason why and the scholars today hate that shit. I think Dan's one of those people who who fight against that. And then, no, that's incorrect. Dark Ages, it wasn't really that dark. It was actually pretty bright. No, fuck that. I agree with the Renaissance people. I agreed that it was Dark Ages. And there's only one reason why. I don't care about technology. I don't care about logistics. I don't care about how cool their churches looked. I don't give a shit about how beautiful they have crucifixes and all that stuff. There was no fucking text. No classical literature between 500 and 1,000. Zero. You cannot compare Cicero. You cannot compare Ovid and Virgil and Homer and Plato and Socrates and Hypatia and Sappho. You can't compare them. There's no comparison to all those amazing, brilliant thinkers and writers of the classical antiquity compared to anyone between 500 and 1,000 AD. Fucking Dark Ages, bro. Period. Facts. And so this dude says it so well. This is what he says. Religio, Nonius Marcellus writes, is the worship of the gods. According to Plutarch, in the life of Aemilius Paulus, the philosophers and all other ancestors defined it as knowledge of divine matters. Aulus Gellius says that Marcus Cicero, in a speech on the appointing of a prosecutor, maintains that shrines full of majesty and awe are called religiosa. And Sabinus thinks that religiosus is which, because of some quality of holiness, has been removed and set apart from us. The term being derived from leaving behind, relinquere. Servius Sulpicius thought that religiosus is that which, because of some quality of holiness, has derived its name from to remove. And Pompeius Festus says religiosi are those who distinguish between the things that are to be done and the things that are to be avoided. Now that is a good etymology dig for religion, done how many years before Dan did it? 800 years before Dan did it. And it's not Enlightenment, and this is before the fucking Protestant Reformation. So these ideas are already way before the Protestant Reformation. It has nothing to do with that. And by the way, Dan is making this weird argument that this term religion only somehow helps Protestant Christians in the modern age. And he says in his article, it says only for like white males specifically, which is weird. It's in the article. You'll see that. But the term for religion in Arabic is widely used in the same context that we use. It's called deen, D-I-I-N, or however it's spelled in Arabic, deen. And that's the term that we would translate into English as religion, and it's used in the exact same context. So you're actually, what you're doing is you're taking the context away from the whole world, basically, and just saying and just trying to hone in on this one little group of people as if it only helps them. I think you're putting your politics into this shit too much, dude. I don't find that a fair argument.
Okay, I'm gonna bust in because I want to make a comment.
Yeah,
and I need to say that Chewy is very quick on the trigger and was trying to shoot somebody in the chat and missed and hit somebody else. And what was the for that person who was hit? Oh, it's Dave Hawthorne. Dave, I'm so sorry. Chewy blasted you, but you got a big laser hole right in your chest, buddy. If we can bring you back from the dead, we will. But we weren't shooting. Chewy wasn't shooting for you. Keep the chat in a place that is appropriate for the salon, baby. Right? Or Chewy is armed and ready. You see that bow thing? Whew! All right, sorry. I want to say about what you were just doing, Neil. First of all, it was a little hard to watch. Yep. It was a little hard to watch. I got to admit. I mean, I took my turn. You took your turn. And boy, by the end of it, it must be sore. It must really be sore. What I saw you do was what a good dissertation committee will do. Right? You have to get that dissertation to the raw point of perfection. And somebody who's going to step up, put some Greek up there, and misspell it. That's, come on, man.
Especially when you get that offended about how great your Greek is, that you for 10 years. Yeah.
Right.
So
Right now,
did I tell you about the back and forth that I had when I with him on X on Twitter?
No, tell me about the back and forth.
All right, can I just throw a couple more screenshots?
Oh yeah, no, I'm out. I just wanted to pop in for a second.
This is funny. People are gonna like this because I brought some shit to him on Twitter that he just had to stop listening. He had to stop replying because he knew he tapped out. It was game over for this dude. So I followed Dan. I actually learned a lot from Dan McClellan, believe it or not. Especially on the Hebrew, Old Testament stuff. I want to know. I'm trying to learn as much as I can from everybody. But I noticed something. Oh, this is the wrong slide. All right, here it is. Dan McClellan. There was a post where he, I have it screenshotted here somewhere. Sorry about that. Let me just, did I really not save it? Oh, here we go. Okay, I got it now. So Dan McClellan was refuting a Christian, and the Christian made this point, and I thought this was kind of dumb at first. I just didn't understand what the argument was. Some Christian named Chris Kugler said that Paul didn't believe in only one God, but he did believe in a cosmogonical first principle that was distinct from all other reality, not in degree, but in kind. Now, bravo to you, Chris, because you read the sources. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just got lucky. I don't know. But if you read the sources, you would know that was the dominant philosophy in the first century under the Middle Platonism of the day. Middle Platonism, for those who don't know, was the leading philosophical dominance of thought all over the Mediterranean, which combines Plato's philosophy of the demiurge, the perfect God who created everything, mixed with the Stoic Logos, who's also a monistic, maybe even monistic God. Sometimes they call it the nous, the mind, or the arche, the first. It comes from the pre-Socratics. It comes from Athens, baby. Now, if you don't read fucking the classical sources, you wouldn't know this. And this is Dan showing off that he doesn't know classical sources, because this is I'm telling you, I wish I can describe this better. If you know, but you ever heard someone try to just like explain, I don't know, Star Wars or something, and they pretend to be an expert in Star Wars, but then they say like Jabba the Hutt, and they say like some name wrong or something, or they get something wrong that's so sophomoric. It's like, wait, did you even watch that movie? How did you not even know this? That's what Dan's doing right here. This is on full display. Because anyone who reads the fucking text from the first century or the first century BC or the second century BC or the third century BC, even in the fourth century BC, you will find in theologians and philosophers, there's an idea of an arche, the first, the one, the monad, as he's described in the Chaldean oracles, the monad, who splits his dyad into two, becomes a triad. And this is influencing Trinitarian theology. Now, am I just connecting the two because I feel like it? No, we have Christian sources called the Valentinians, who were prominent in the first half of the second century, who believe that Christ and Zoe, Logos and Zoe, as in John 1 describes, if you read it in the Greek, Dan should know this. If you read the John 1 in the Greek, you get Theos creates the world through a Logos who splits off a dyad as Zoe, life. That's translated into life. The Valentinians argued that that's a triad in the Pythagorean sense, and he was charged by Hippolytus in the late second century with plagiarizing Pythagoras. This is how we know this is our Greek ideas. Anyways, so Dan comes along and thinks this is a retrogression of later philosophical frameworks onto Paul's writings. For instance, it presupposes creation ex nihilo. Huh? Which is an ideology that wouldn't be created until over a century after Paul's death. People need to think more critically about what monotheism is. Now, this is strange because the guy didn't even say anything about monotheism. And he didn't even say anything about creation from nothing, which is what creation ex nihilo is, which is it technically is a doctrine from Theophilus of Antioch in the late 2nd century, which is what Dan probably read somewhere and just asserted that's got to be the only time it just invented from thin air. Like there's no ideas that preceded. Just this guy was a genius. It just out of thin air invented this new doctrine. But it's such a weird thing to say to this guy. So okay, so I have my things backwards. You just gotta here we go. So I come in and somebody asked Dan McClellan, they go, "Hey Dan, isn't it possible that creation ex nihilo was," I think they said something along the lines of like not necessary for Paul, or there could be similar ideas to this. He said something like that. I didn't have that part screen check. I don't really care what the person said. But Dan's response was anything is possible. But the overwhelming consensus, I hate when he says that. The overwhelming consensus is not an argument, by the way. It's an assertion. But the overwhelming consensus is that the Christians developed it in the late 2nd century during debates with Gnostics and other Greek thinkers. Whoa, that's a really sophomoric phrase right there. Debates with Gnostics. What? What did I just? What the fuck? Do you not know Christian history? Not debates with Gnostics. What is this, like 1940 scholarship right here? I thought we were way past the Gnostic thing, because first of all, that happened in the early second century, not the late 2nd century, and they're not Gnostics. They're just fucking Christians. We call them Gnostics. They called them Gnostics later. So there's so much wrong in what he just said there. So much wrong in what he just said there. So I come in. This is what I said. Anything's possible. How about maybe read the primary sources and check? This is laughably wrong. In order to be this off, one must have gone their whole PhD career without reading any primary sources of the theologians and philosophers of the time of Paul. Just because Theophilus of Antioch was the first to articulate this as creatio ex nihilo in the 160s does not mean that he just invented it from thin air. This is typical of Middle Platonic theology, a combination of the Stoic logos with Plato's demiurge. Easily found. You could just find sources all over. Alcinous is a big source. Plutarch talks about. Anyways, I'll just keep reading. And even in some degree, going back, easily found in the writings of Philo, his 1st century BC writer and 1st century CE writer. He's at the turn of the century. Writings of Philo and other Middle Platonists, and even to some degree going back to Plato's Timaeus. By the way, if you haven't read Plato's Timaeus, don't call yourself a scholar of religion. Don't call yourself a theology major. Stop. Call yourself something else, because if you don't know Plato's Timaeus, then you don't know the whole roots of Western theology. You don't know the roots of monotheism at all. You need to just stop. You need to go back to school. And let me finish this off before you say something on that, all right? As the idea develops over the course of many centuries, just looking up when was creatio ex nihilo a Christian doctrine doesn't explain where this idea comes from. And Paul's theology was certainly influenced by Middle Platonism. By the way, you could tell not just by you could tell by the way Paul's ideas and Paul's aesthetic, Paul's morals, all Middle Platonist, all of it. And also, debates with Gnostics, that happened in the early 2nd century, not late 2nd century, and nobody called themselves Gnostics. They were just Christians with various beliefs, some emphasis on gnosis in some of the groups. This whole post sounds uninformed in many ways. Now, before you say something, if I was to make a list of all the major Gnostic thinkers, all of them are dead by 160. Marcion, Valentinus, the Carpocrates, Basilides, most of them are dead before the 2nd century even started. Saturnius, Simon Magus, most of them are dead. Most of them didn't even make it to the 2nd century. They're all the roots of it is 1st century. They're all dead by the year 150, 144, 160. So it's like, wait a minute, how many of these people came back from the dead, Dan, to debate the creation ex nihilo? You don't know what you're talking about. All right, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say congratulations for towing, you know, the line.
Not over yet. It's not over yet. It gets worse.
You know what I mean? No, but I think it's important to realize, look what you're doing. You're taking a critical look at the work, and you're doing it from the perspective of those sources. I just want you to know I'm digging your work.
This is where the gaslighting comes in. This is where the typical Dan comes in. Typical, how dare you? How dare you? I'm a Mormon. Dan comes in after I just threw all the primary sources down his throat. He comes in and says, I've read the primary sources many times, which I can tell he hasn't, because he wouldn't have said that. Just straight up fact. Doesn't follow. That's not logic. You wouldn't have said what you fucking said if you read the primary sources. Duh! I've read the primary sources many times, and I'm representing the overwhelming consensus. The overwhelming consensus. You can check out May, Hubler, Winston V. Goldstein, and more recently, even Anderson and Brickmill to read about the primary sources that you've misread. To be promoting creation. By the way, I never promoted creation ex nihilo. You're the one that brought that up. I just said you don't fucking need it, dummy. All right. Before I even checked any of those fucking names that he threw at me in an attempt to gaslight, I didn't care, because I know the primary sources, and they didn't change because you just threw some books at me. They're still there, and they still say the same things, Dan. That's how history works. It's stuck, frozen. History doesn't change. We can play definition games and nothing changes in the past except how we look at it. So here's what I said. Listing a bunch of scholars' names in some attempt to gaslight does not somehow erase the primary sources like Plato, Aristobulus, Philo, Plutarch, and forming groups like the Hypsisterians with concepts of an eternal perfect creator, just as Plato talks about in Timaeus. And this was present in Middle Platonism long before creatio ex nihilo was an official doctrine. Again, creatio ex nihilo wasn't invented from thin air. It was preceded by these doctrines, and I know this because I read the fucking sources. From the primary sources you don't read, Dan. The comment you tried to refute was not about when creatio ex nihilo became a doctrine in Christianity. The comment was about what Paul believed about God. And you can't say that these ideas came later. That would be admitting that you are not aware of the sources. Then I went and looked. First book. He gave me May was the first one. And let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Mr. PhD with his fucking 10 years of teaching Greek, maybe he's right and I'm wrong. Let's see. Let's read the fucking shit that he gave me to read. The first fucking page I open up was literally mentions all the sources that I mentioned. It mentions Philo. It says, he opens up a question. Is it true that Philo already had something similar to creation ex nihilo in the 1st century BC? We're going to talk about that. And then it says, oh, of course, we have to talk about Plato's Timaeus as well. All of it was right there in the fucking first page. I couldn't believe it. So I had to come back to Dan. 24 hours later, I came back to Dan. I said, Dan, after checking into some of the names you listed, the real question is, did you read them? May immediately begins to discuss Plato's Timaeus and the question of, did Philo already teach creation out of nothing? And how Plato's was interpreted by Basilides, 1st century Christian, not late 2nd century Christian. You're off by about 100 years there. Interpreted by Basilides. By the way, the Magus Archon, that's Abraxas, baby. 1st, 2nd century Christian. The logo of my channel, that's Abraxas. That's the Magus Archon. He's the eternal, perfect God that created everything. You cannot say that you don't need. There's no requirement for creation ex nihilo for Basilides' doctrine. He already has it there. It's in the sources. Read Hippolytus. Read Irenaeus. A 1st, 2nd century Christian. He even has a chapter about Theophilus of Antioch, who he says is responding to these ideas. Nothing so far suggests that the idea of a single perfect eternal creator requires the doctrine of creation ex nihilo. You can reject Philo and Plato as holding to, you can reject that Philo and Plato hold an identical doctrine of CEN, creation ex nihilo, but you still can't reject that an eternal perfect one is not something already dominant by Paul's time. This is so bad. This is when I decided this has got to make a video. because Dan, you can go after low hanging fruit TikToks all day long, but as soon as someone comes along and challenges you, you get quiet because he never responded to that last post about when I said, bro, you were wrong and I was right. The sources, he never responds to that. He's done talking to me after that. But one of his colleagues, Jason Staples, who's a big time biblical scholar, he came along, jumps out of the woodwork and says, Dan, I am exceedingly unpersuaded by that last statement. What is the evidence that Christian monotheism, by the way, everyone knows what he means by that. So who gives a fuck how you define this word? I knew what he meant by that. The idea that the Christian God is the high God, qualitatively different from everything else, requires curatio ex nihilo? It certainly isn't logically, syllogistically required. So his own colleague comes in and fucking checks his ass. And so Dan does respond to him, but not me. He says, the Enlightenment Christians who coined... We're already back in the Enlightenment again. The Enlightenment Christians who coined the term treated the notion of matter existing eternally independent and irreconcilable with monotheism, as have most Christians since then. Then scholars started arguing creation ex nihilo isn't in the Bible, and things changed. What the fuck was that? You just dodged the whole question. Nobody gives a... We're not talking about how to define monotheism. We're not talking about what Enlightenment Christians decided the monotheism was. We're talking about Paul and what Paul believed in God. Does it require creation ex nihilo or no? It doesn't. If you knew the sources, this would be a done deal. We're done. But you just completely dodged that question. So, and then he says, so is it monotheism for Christians has always required creation ex nihilo? Look, you could tell he's confused. What the fuck? Or just since the Enlightenment? I'm a little confused here. Or is it just the term monotheism itself we're talking about? No, that's it. Dan never responds to that. Never. He's done. He just taps out. He just pretends it never happened. He's gone. You know how Dan responds to everything on X or on fucking TikTok? He can respond to fucking Amon today. Why is he still hasn't responded to this? So this is the last thing I said, and I left it alone after this. I said, Dan, are you all right? Should we get you some help? Talk about Gish Galloping. Holy moly. You keep going off into areas that have nothing to do with anything that was said by the comment or my response to you. None of this has anything to do with Paul and first century Middle Platonism. We can play a defined monotheism game all we want at these stupid conferences that no one cares about. I certainly don't care about them. I don't care how you define monotheism. I don't give a shit. All I care about is what does the text say. We can play definition games all we want. I don't care. It's stupid. That's why I think your dissertation was stupid about religion. I think it's dumb. Who cares? None of that will change what happened in the past and rewrite what people believed. So again, for the fifth time, based on what every single person who studied 101 ancient philosophy and theology already knows, why does the belief in a perfect eternal one, distinct from other daemons/deities, require curatio ex nihilo? The answer is it doesn't. And anyone who actually reads the primary sources about this period could tell you this. Dan never replied. Tapped out. Done. Gave up. Because he knows he's done. And that's the end of that story.
Wow. Okay. Now, for those of us who, okay, we got to call the match and what we see. And we got to say it like it is here in the museum.
By the way, 540 people are watching this shit right now.
Yeah. No, thank you for the people who are coming. New people to Lady Babylon. Yeah. And by the way, to the guy that we executed accidentally, Chewy, be better with your blaster. What you've done is I really, really like the fact that you're drawing it all back to those primaries. And this is the real problem. When Dan wants to erect a boundary between Christians and non-Christians living at the very same time, or Jesus and those people around him, this is what the theology has given us. It's tamped down. You know, Julian, do you think Julian was right after all that, you know, as a means of calm down after the fight, which by the way, it was gruesome, brah. It was gruesome. Remind me to bring you along. You can, you know, we can watch each other's back. I appreciate that. And you're flying with some serious skill. So thank you for being a participant. But tell me this. Is there something in the theology degree? Is there something in the religious history degree? Is there something in the fabric of the discipline that causes you to produce somebody who's going to make who's going to make big assertions without really looking at evidence? You tell me, this is what I'm asking. This is what I want your perspective on. You're coming at these sources new in the last couple of years, right? And you have managed to saturate. I don't know how much time you sleep, but you've managed to saturate yourself when you're throwing things. Listen to you talking about Plato tonight. That was fantastic. Timaeus, God, I wanted to find the exit. Like, oh, I hope he didn't call on me. Right? You know what I mean? So nice job, gorgeous job. And kudos to you for that. And that's all that matters. At this Lady Babylon dojo, that is all that matters. That is executing the art. And I think that's what really stings me about guys like Dan, is that they bring an element of deception to the science, and I think you're a great warrior for that reason. So congratulations. Is there anything else you want to throw in there after the?
It's not. I think there's what's evident in a lot of these academic circles is there's certain, it maybe not dogmas, but like there's certain atmospheres where certain things there's ideas that are pushed easier than others, if that makes sense, where there's some groupthink going on, it seems like. And it seems like there's some political layers there.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about one side being correct politically or one side not being correct. I don't care if I might agree with his politics, but that shit should not determine how I look at the ancient past.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that. That's all. That's all.
It's sloppy, isn't it? It's sloppy. And you find that a lot, unfortunately, through seminaries. You find kind of sloppy work like that. I would thank Dan for coming tonight. I really appreciate the fact that he's been a guest, and this has been scrumptious.
I look forward to any responses we get.
I hope for the 586 people who have come, I feel the burden and the weight, the responsibility of giving you something that's worth your time. And I hope that tonight you appreciate and accept as a gift to you the vision of Jesus, the Christ, who is the drug-using, child prostituting guy from a time when you couldn't always get away with that kind of thing. You may get crucified before that kind of stuff. And the drugs. Thank you for following the drugs through all this.
Back the Dark Ages term.
Yeah. What were you saying, by the way, about who figured who?
So my boy's Petrarch. He's the one who coined the term in like the 1300s, and then Machiavelli used it. Brumi used it. Flavio used it. It was big in the early Renaissance, right around the time Constantinople fell. People were like, "This is some dark shit going on in the last 800 something years, whatever, 500 years." And we know what they were doing. They were looking back at the classical antiquities, the classical sources of antiquity. They're looking back at Ovid and Virgil and Homer and Aristotle and Hypatia, who's the real martyr, not the fake martyrs that they've made fake legends about, and Sappho and all these amazing texts that we got, Euripides, all these amazing plays that we got, all the mystery religions that people believed in. That's what Machiavelli was saying. He's saying everyone's atheist now. This is before Nietzsche. Forget about Nietzsche. Machiavelli was saying the same shit Nietzsche was saying. He was saying, why is it nobody even believes in this shit anymore? It's all just like fake. people believed in religion back in the ancient Roman days. People look forward to the next Roman festival of Magna Mater. People look forward to the games of Apollo. People look forward to the Dionysian Bacchic revelries and the Saturnalias. Every month there was a new festival to look forward to. Now you got Easter and Christmas. Yay. No one gives a shit. And so they're called it the Dark Ages. And I know, what's that scientist's name? Oh, shit. He got in trouble. He got in trouble for bringing that term up, Dark Ages. And all the academics were like, bad. That's a bad term. You don't use that. No, you're not allowed to use Dark Ages anymore. And
you've been around academics now, and you've been interacting with them. By the way, you also interacted with a great scholar who works in Haifa, right? And he worked with Finkelstein from Tel Aviv, and the dude who was on the Megiddo dig. Oh God, what gorgeousness! And what was he? Can you just give the audience a punchline of that? Because you can't.
Oh, I got a clip actually.
Okay. Oh, you have a clip. Oh, play it.
All right. This is actually a good. This will actually be a good. This is all right. I'm gonna stay tuned for my channel coming out in the next day or two, probably in the next 2 days, something like that. I have the full video of this clip.
And you see it in the archaeological record so clearly. There's nothing before and it starts after. That I think it's really hard to argue with that.
This is what I've been saying for as long as I started to discover some of this information. And then obviously we get the Septuagint translation coming a little bit later, but it doesn't seem like the construction or the creation of Genesis, for example, let's just take Genesis by itself, doesn't seem to have been constructed that much earlier, maybe less than a century before at some point.
Even decades. Decades. That's what I was going to say, maybe
decades. Do you hear what he said?
Talked about Virgil.
Do you hear what he said? He said decades, if not decades. And by the way, you notice how I wasn't setting him up. I wasn't trying to put any words in his mouth. I was so liberal with how I handled that. I'll go, hey, when do you think the translation came about? How, a century at least? He said, maybe decades. We're talking somewhere between 300 and 270 is when we get the Torah, according to a leading professor at Haifa University.
Can I just say, I told you so.
You've been saying
it. And yeah, no, he's right on it. And yeah, good. You know what? It's nice. That's so inspiring to see a scholar out there who's willing to say exactly how it is, even though, hey, you know what that means, right? I mean, that's Neil. That's an atomic bomb. If
he's got a book, that guy. So stay tuned for my podcast with him, 2.5 hours long. All we're talking about is dating. Yeah, he calls it Yahwism, Yahoo from the Elephantine. We talk about Elephantine, Yahwism, how they're all polytheistic. There's no Moses, there's no Abraham, there's no Noah, there's no Jacob, there's no David anywhere for 1,000 years before 300 BC. And then he says Hecate is the first person to ever mention Moses. Everything we've both been saying on your channel and my channel for the last year and 2 years. He says it right here. His work is separate than us. How is it that he's coming to the exact same conclusions as you and me? Because we're reading the sources. Science only works one way. You don't come to two different conclusions when you run the certain tests and with the same evidence.
It's amazing that people don't realize that classical philology, the study of ancient Greek and Latin, that's a very scientific discipline.
You know what he said? First thing he says in that clip, it is so clear. There's nothing before. He's talking about 300 BC. He's talking about the year. When he said before, he meant the Library of Alexandria. That's because we were just talking about that right before that clip. He goes, it's so clear. There's nothing before the Library of Alexandria, and then all of a sudden after the Library of Alexandria, you get all these Bible texts everywhere, and all of a sudden synagogue stuff. By the way, the oldest synagogue in the archaeological record is like 175 BC.
Open it. I was there.
The oldest one.
Yeah,
You don't have
second century. Greek. It's all Greek that's there. That's all they've got left is the Greek because they didn't have any Hebrew, right? And people are always shocked. They're like, huh? Yeah.
By the way,
Yeah.
Dan, speaking about Dan, he tells people that the biblical story becomes historical at the time of David. Which means King Solomon, who had all these wives and concubines, the richest man in the world, who had all these lands and territories. Where's the evidence of that? What do you mean historical? What the what?
That I ran up
his only book that he has out, his only peer-reviewed book, Yahweh's Divine Images. And I read it. And it's like right in the first chapter, he's dating the Bible to like 700 BC. He is in that book.
Yeah, that's
guess who published that book? SBL.
Okay, got it. Okay, now I understand. Yeah, I hope they made some cash on their deception. Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say something. It just kind of fled my mind. I'm kind of overwhelmed because it's with the Megiddo dig, and your professor from Haifa, he knows Finkelstein, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, with that dig, they were saying at Megiddo.
Aren't you on that dig?
Yeah, I was. And what they were saying from the season that I was there, at least, what they were saying is that one of the layers was Solomon's, right? This is Solomon's way station, and this is where they take tolls. And there's no, right? That stuff's all made up, right? It's all made up.
Right.
That's why when they dug down to the Canaanite floor, I was like, yeah.
That's part of our video. We said that's another thing Gad was saying. He goes, we use the terms second and first temple period. What does that even mean? It's all based on the Bible. There is no first and second temple period. By the way, Herod, what is that? The third temple then? Why don't we call it the temple that fell in 70? That's the third temple. And it's not even like Pompey the Great sacks the temple in 63 BCE. The temple's gone after that. They had to rebuild it after that. There's a whole bunch of temple periods, but we only say first and second. Why? Because that's what the Bible says.
Yeah, it's like an infiltration, because when you say this is us and we are different, just like Dan was doing tonight, this is us, Christianity, and we are different from everybody else around us. Then you can treat your scholarship that way, and your history can come out completely just a bastardized form of reality. And it's been in those periods when people discover the source, right? When you go back to the source. And you know what I'm talking about, Neil. You've been there, right? You worship the muse, baby. It's those sources that are everything. Those sources are everything. So, yeah, I'm going to throw it to you then. And I'm going to say, hey, give me your last thoughts on the evening. It's been an interesting week. We've had a lot of things going on. Give me your last thoughts, and we'll throw it to the Chewy. If you can get any questions that you want to bring them up. But go ahead.
Man, I think we need to. If there's one thing I do agree with Dan on, is the notion of serving religion serving this class of Protestants and Catholics and Orthodox Christians needs to go, as if we're still in the Dark Ages. I'll just say it like that, because once we can bring back the idea that religion has to do with the reflection of the self, the inspiration of what we call the muse, the Dionysian spirit, the frenzy, the inspiration, the Bacchic mania, baby. Get people fired up about something. Artistic expression, as in the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans and even the ancient Indians and all the way in the Hindus. And there's a lot of ancient Africans as well. Bring back the ancient expression of the self as religion. Bring back the images again. Idolatry is not evil. The image. Bring an image of every single type of person that exists. Hermaphroditus. Everything needs to be on a fucking as an altar to be worshipped. an image that represents the self, not just one face of a bearded guy on a cross. No, we need to kill that. That's what religion needs to be. That's what I'll say.
Are you talking about cult? Or
Cult.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, bring back local cults again, mystery religions. Do it.
Yeah.
People will actually have something to believe in again. Instead of dogma, right? Remember that term that they had at the Oracle of Delphi? What was that? What was that phrase that was on the wall at the Oracle of Delphi?
Nothi Sauton, right? Or was that? Yeah, no, that was on the Apollo, the temple of Apollo.
Know thyself.
Right.
Yeah. So the Oracle of Delphi, right?
Yeah, love it. Oh,
bring
God.
back that image. Bring back the image of the virgin warrior, Minerva.
Yeah.
Those are the things that made people want to live.
Yeah.
Right?
The reality. The reality. There's a zeal. Now, what do you say, though? Neil? Hang on. What do you say? Because people are saying in the comments and stuff, and I hope people in the chat, we can talk about this too. But people are saying there's, demon possession and things are, people are talking about pray for Dan, and, that group is assembling. What do you think about that?
Wait, what? Pray for Dan.
Pray for Dan. You haven't seen the comments that say pray for Dan?
No, I wasn't looking at the comments, but no,
Dan's
doing just
there's oh, I'm sorry. No, pray for Danny. Pray for Danny, right? Pray for Danny Jones because he's interacting with the demonic forces of the devil. Oh my God, it's so.
Danny, my interview with Danny's coming out next week, so.
Oh,
and by the way, for the 561 people who are watching, who are new, or a lot of them are new, because it jumped up about 300 since before the Danny interview. Which, by the way, congrats on you for really doing good in that interview. But anyways, Danny talked for 3.5 hours. The first whole hour was just about what you said. It was me responding to your interview without even seeing it, just kind of feeling out what Danny was telling me that you were talking about. So it is kind of a part two in a way. It is kind of a part two to yours.
Good. I mean, it sounds like it'll be a nice bridge. That's gorgeous. And you know what that is? Look what's going on, man. That's collegial advancement in science, baby. That's what you're doing. You're talking about text, and you're talking about looking at text and how to translate. Oh,
speaking of text, one more text before we go. Text before we go. I got it on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Remember we were talking about the idea of the Mark 14 theory or the Mark 14 reading, as you would call it, actually has some evidence behind it. The PGM is a contemporary text with the Gospels, and it tells you to helios, wrap a naked in linen, a sindon, right, from head to toe, clap your hands, ringing a noise, and it says Adonai Eloah Yahu Saboeth. What is the words that Jesus says on the cross? Eloah, Eloah, sabachthani. So there is an argument, is a solid, slam good argument, I think, to be made that this could be some sort of magical text going on. I'm just saying. I just opened up a whole new can of worms right there.
No. Neil, I've got a whole book of early Christian magic somewhere. And those texts, I think a lot of them are Coptic. But seeing the use of the magic, there are a lot of naked boys that you're going to find running around in
a lot of weird shit like that in the PGM.
Magical text. Well,
I found like 20 like that. There's like 20 of them like that.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought me those naked boys tonight. I appreciate it. Anyone know where I can see a copy of the performance of Medea? They got him excommunicated. Now, technically, who is that? Milo? Milo, let me tell you this. I wasn't excommunicated because in order to be excommunicated, you got to be communicated. And I was not communicated. So they couldn't excommunicate me. They could just fire me. And that's what happened. By the way, that performance of Medea, is absolutely delicious to have I just want to, I'm glad you brought it up because I just want to say this. Just imagine this for a minute. A chorus of Catholic college girls dressed in leather with dildos pointed at priests who had been accused of being pedophiles. Oh my God. That was the sexiest. The Monsignor told me. No. I want to tell people what the effect of that was historically, because I want this down. Somebody write this down. The effect of those performances, right? So we're giving these performances during the school year, right? And for the theater department. And it's a big project, and it's just gloriously done. Very professionally handled. Outstanding work, right? All around. Costumes are, oh God, they're gorgeous. And so in the midst of all of this, there's a chemistry that's going on between the stage and the audience that's perceiving the play. And that chemistry could be felt in the seminary. The seminary servers skyrocketed with porn. The Furies, those Catholic girls brought out the fury, and all the servers porn warnings, right? Because they monitor all that stuff, right?
When was this?
This is when I was at St. Mary's, and one of my students was the Monsignor who was in charge.
This is a college, though, right?
Yeah, St. Mary's University, right, in Minnesota. And the person that was one of my students was also the Monsignor who was involved in, overseeing when bad things happened, and making them right, or at least, making sure that the train got going somewhere to Wrightville, right? He was a former Navy guy. I absolutely loved him. I absolutely loved him to death. Great guy. And you know what? He would have been, if he didn't become a vicar general, he would have ultimately, in another life, he would have been in the museum, and he would be standing next to the poets, Neil. You know what I mean? So anywho, that was totally unrelated, but I want people to enjoy all the demon possession stuff. All of these emails are fantastic. The people, look, I'm a real priest, and this guy's really possessed. Or look, I'm a shaman. I like the ayahuasquero who wrote it. He's like, this guy is totally possessed, right? So, we're gonna get the Greek.
Plato said being possessed is the highest form of a state you can be in. Yeah. That Bacchic mania, baby.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be the other day, Neil,
that's the Holy Spirit. When you see, by the way, this just blows my mind. When you know who wrote a lot about this was Karl Karenyi, an early religion scholar from the 1900s to 1940s, I think somewhere in between there, early to middle, first half of the 20th century. Let's just say that. And he was friends with Carl Jung. They co-wrote books together. Actually, I have it right here. This book right here is co-written by Carl Jung and Karl Karenyi, Essays on a Science of Mythology. And they talk about, look, when you see these snake handling Christians speaking in tongues and going shaken because they have the Holy Spirit, that's Bacchic mania. They're adopting that from the Greeks. This is an ancient idea from the mystery religions that's being passed down all the way until today.
Totally. And the Christian community is going to have to face this more and more as the knowledge spreads. They're going to see their own origins, and they're not going to like what they see. And the naked boy is just that cherry on the top of the cupcake of doom. So let me finish with that and tell people, Chewy wanted me to let you know that we've got things, they're going to start getting rolling with U, a place where people can come and can learn and can be enlisting in basically taking a lot of ancient Greek dope and growing your brain, in a warrior's way. This is and let me tell you something. I have so many students who entered into the same initiation I did. The ancient Greek gets into your brain and it starts changing it, and it gives you vision. It gives you vision in a way that you can't do with the Anglo-Saxon. I don't know. Not all of us are created equal in the world of language. Oh, life's rough. It's survival of the fittest. And Greek made it to the top and then squashed everybody else around her. Just, oh God, Athena, you're so sexy, right?
By
the
way, I remember it was Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Carl Sagan. He's the one who stuck his neck out. Great scientist of our time. He stuck his neck out and said, the Dark Ages was a real, legitimate term, and I'm standing by it. And he got in trouble for that. I even heard a scholar say he did damage for saying that on his show. Go look it up. It's on YouTube. The episode 1 of Cosmos, from a show from the 1990s or 1980s or something. Old show. It's called Cosmos. And he opens up the show brilliantly, talking about Eratosthenes and Plato and Aristotle and Archimedes and all these amazing writers from mathematicians and scientists figuring out the movements of the stars and all this shit, and the death of Hypatia and the Alexandrian library. And then he uses the term Dark Ages that follows it. And they were like, he did damage for saying that. That was mean. You shouldn't have said that. That's not a legitimate term to use anymore. Nope. I agree with Carl Sagan. I got Carl Sagan's back, and I'm gonna stick with it.
Look at what have you become? You have become some kind of Renaissance. I'm expecting you to ride out soon with like armor or something. I'm gonna be like, oh God. Seriously, I am so impressed. And I'm a little bit set back. Let's end on this. I'm a little bit humbled tonight because Neil, I got to confess to you, I don't do some of those sources like you're doing, like Machiavelli. I was like, oh shit, right? So, hey,
yo, discourse is on.
What? You know what this is?
Discourse is on Livy. It's amazing.
Okay, you know what?
This... Everyone talks about the Prince. Boring.
Yeah,
his discourses on Livy. That's an amazing text.
I will do. And look, people, what's happening. Look what's happening. This is a dojo. This is a place. This is a Renaissance dojo. And that's what I really, really wanted with Lady Babylon. Everybody who's new, thank you for coming. You're all sexy. Join the satanic congregation. Hail Satan.
Hail Satan.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shell. Magic even stronger than the drugs to sell. Are the songs, the magic fleece, darkness through dreams, an animal skin with the song of the queen, written there with magic ink, guarded by a dragon in the grave of Mars on the east side of the Black Sea. Dragon venom from the god with horns. I am being ionic. Watch the image. Huge letters in Greek. Cornucopia, Ouroboros, Clio, Medea, and Bacchus. The dragon venom will knock him back. Phase interferometry. Traces floating. Crazy eyes. Drinking purple mead and whiskey with Lady Medea, straight out of Babylon. Venus with a penis. Gold horns of Alexander. Hit you with the Mandelbrot set on the DMT. Way up the elemental P's. Slang, what words will it mean? Dragon venom of darkest dreams.